In 1970, the Ford Motor Company proudly debuted its newest addition to the family, the Pinto. At first, the Pinto was famous for two reasons. It was small and it was cheap. Marketed as costing just $1 per pound, the Pinto's compact 2,000-pound frame clocked in at a modest $2,000, making the car affordable and popular. But later, the Pinto would gain a newer, darker sort of fame as one of the worst and most dangerous vehicles ever built. It wasn't just its price tag that made it infamous. There was a deadly secret lurking beneath its sleek exterior. But before we delve into the chilling controversy, don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic automotive adventures. Let's rewind to the 1960s, when American car buyers were suddenly eyeing smaller, more economical vehicles from Japan and Europe. Ford took notice and decided they needed a contender in the ring. They aimed to create a car that could compete with the likes of the Volkswagen Beetle and the Datsun 510, and that's when the idea of the Pinto was born. We are talking about the early 1970s when the Ford Motor Company was under the leadership of Lee Iacocca, and he had a vision for a new kind of car. He wanted to create something that was both cheap and compact, and the result was the Ford Pinto, which they marketed as the little carefree car. However, this seemingly fun and youthful car would become tragically synonymous with injury, suffering, and death. What's astounding is that the entire process, from the idea to production, took less than 2 years. This was considerably faster than the usual 43-month timeline for developing a new car. Now, let's dive into the car's design, which sets it apart in many ways, besides just being small. One of the noticeable omissions was the traditional bumper used to absorb impact in collisions. While this might have been manageable with other safety measures, the Pinto had a major flaw. The gas tank had very little protection. The combination of these design choices had dire consequences. If a Pinto was rear-ended, it was extremely vulnerable to having its fuel tank punctured, leading to massive fires. And if a fire did break out, escape was often a near impossible task. The doors had a nasty habit of jamming shut after an impact, leaving victims trapped inside as the vehicle became a blazing inferno. This cocktail of design choices transformed a car meant to symbolize carefree fun into a nightmare on wheels. The Ford Pinto's tragic saga took a more sinister turn as the glaring flaws in its design led to not only severe injuries, but also tragic fatalities. Official records documented 27 deaths directly linked to the Pinto, though some experts and activists argue that the actual death toll might have been substantially higher. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, didn't take long to raise red flags about the Pinto's safety. They launched an investigation into the Pinto's design, aiming to understand the scope of the issue and assess whether a recall was necessary. In 1974, the NHTSA made a controversial decision not to require a recall, a decision that sparked significant public outcry and controversy. However, in 1978, Ford decided to take action and issued its own recall for the Pinto. This recall impacted approximately 1.5 million Pintos, with model years spanning from 1971 to 1976. The recall also extended to a similar model, the Mercury Bobcat, produced from 1975 to 1976. This move was long overdue, but essential to address the dangerous defects that had put countless lives at risk. Yet, it's crucial to emphasize that the recall came far too late. By the time these unsafe vehicles were finally taken off the streets, the terrible damage had already been done. The Pinto's legacy was marred not only by accidents and injuries, but also by legal battles and courtroom confrontations. One of the most significant legal battles was the Grimshaw versus Ford Motor Company case, triggered by a devastating accident in 1972. In this landmark case, a California appellate court ordered Ford to pay a substantial sum of $2.5 million in compensatory damages, in addition to an eye-popping $3.5 million in punitive damages. These figures, while remarkable, could never truly compensate for the lives lost and the pain endured by victims and their families. The court's judgment was not solely based on the design flaws, but also on the revelation that Ford had been well aware of the dangers inherent in the Pinto's design. Shockingly, Ford had conducted a cost-benefit analysis that revealed releasing the hazardous Pinto without necessary safety modifications would be more financially advantageous than making the required adjustments. This disturbing revelation showed that Ford's management prioritized profits over human lives, effectively valuing an inanimate machine over the well-being of the individuals who purchased and drove their cars. In the aftermath of this heartbreaking chapter, Lee Iacocca, who was the president of Ford during the Pinto's tumultuous period, made a startling admission. He revealed, "Clamming up is what we did at Ford in the late 70s when we were bombarded with suits over the Pinto, which was involved in a lot of gas tank fires. The suits might have bankrupted the company, so we kept our mouths shut for fear of saying anything that just one jury might have construed as an admission of guilt. Winning in court was our top priority. Nothing else mattered." The infamous 1977 article in Mother Jones titled "Pinto Madness" firmly placed the blame for fatalities associated with the Ford Pinto on its rear-end fuel tank design. Author Mark Dowie went a step further, suggesting that Ford had deliberately developed this design to save money at the expense of human lives. This narrative quickly became well established in the public imagination, casting the Pinto as a car with unique safety problems and Ford as a corporation willing to sacrifice safety for corporate profits. An underexplored issue in the broader context was the safety record of subcompact cars in general during the late 1970s. It became evident that drivers and passengers of such small cars, including the Pinto but also foreign imports, were at least twice as likely to die in crashes compared to those in larger vehicles. Yet, the prevailing image painted by prosecutors and journalists depicted Ford as a monolithic entity with centralized decision-making that led to clear, deliberate choices, making it easy to lay blame on top-level executives. In reality, as Lee and Ehrman, alongside other organizational researchers, emphasized, Ford operated much like other companies. It involved competing groups of engineers, marketers, and finance professionals who sometimes struggled to work together effectively in creating products such as the Pinto. The Pinto's narrative, they argued, was largely a result of the post-Watergate era in journalism, which often highlighted conspiracy theories and moral considerations in organizational wrongdoing. Lee and Ehrman concluded that there was no single decision to market an unsafe product. Instead, the reality was far more complex. Despite this nuanced understanding, the Pinto's image had already been deeply tarnished in the public eye, and few look back on Ford's foray into the small car market with nostalgia. The Pinto, initially marketed as the carefree car, ultimately proved to be too problematic and was discontinued 10 years after its introduction. Ford's response to the Pinto's safety issues included a voluntary recall of all Pinto models produced between 1971 and 1976, specifically addressing the fuel tank's vulnerabilities. The retrofitted models received a longer fuel tank filler neck and a plastic shield that separated the fuel tank from the differential. This redesign aimed to mitigate the risk of fuel leakage during a rear-end collision, a primary concern due to the Pinto's design flaws. While the Pinto recall was indeed a significant step, it came after substantial damage had been done and many lives had been lost. However, it is worth noting that a study published in 1990 by a professor at the UCLA School of Law found that, when compared to other subcompact cars of its time, the Pinto was not any more dangerous. The study suggested that the Pinto was unfairly singled out in the public imagination. An additional study conducted by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration found that in 1975, the Pinto was responsible for 298 deaths per million cars. Surprisingly, this number was only 10 more than that of the Chevrolet Vega and less than several other popular subcompact models, including the Toyota Corolla, Datsun 1200 or 210, and the Volkswagen Beetle. These findings underscored the idea that the Pinto was not an outlier in terms of safety among its contemporaries. What has made the Ford Pinto truly infamous, however, is not just its safety issues, but also the enduring impact it has had as a case study in business ethics. The Pinto and Ford's response to its safety problems are still widely used as educational material in business ethics courses today. The Grisham versus Ford Motor Company lawsuit, stemming from a tragic accident involving a Pinto, is also a frequently cited case in personal injury tort law studies. In this lawsuit, Ford was ordered to pay over $125 million in damages for the death of the driver, Lily Gray, and severe third-degree burns suffered by passenger Richard Grimshaw. At the time, this was the largest product liability and personal injury award in U.S. history. The case was highly publicized and brought to the forefront the flawed design of the Pinto. However, it's important to note that later on, a judge reduced Ford's monetary liability in the case to just $3.5 million. This legal battle and its significant award, followed by a substantial reduction, represent the broader public awareness and debate surrounding the Pinto's safety and Ford's ethical responsibilities. If you enjoyed this story, buckle up and stay tuned for more fascinating tales about your favorite car brands. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for a joyride through the world of automotive history. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.